Now, there are two different types of disaster artists in my mind. You have number one, Mr. Tommy Wiseau, that can make something so bad that it's good and easily laughable to actually have a great time with friends and family. And then number two, you have someone like Kathleen Kennedy, who is the other type of disaster artist that makes something so bad it's intolerable. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new and like this video to see future Star Wars updates. I'm also on Twitter at Mike01. I thank you also very much for the great and kind support. And without further ado, let's get right into the subject. Now, we know that both franchises, Indiana Jones and Star Wars, have been very mishandled by Kathleen Kennedy in various ways, as John and Dave really try and attempt to salvage whatever's left of Star Wars and turn things around, with the upcoming Dave Filoni trilogy and Ahsoka Season 1 and 2 for starters, as well as Mando Season 4. Will it be enough to really turn the franchise around? I'm still very optimistic about that, but I'm really not optimistic about Indy 5, not even in the slightest. Now, we're going to be diving into exactly what's been going on here between the Dial of Destiny, Harrison Ford, Kathleen Kennedy, and yes, even Mr. Kwan, who played Short Round in the Temple of Doom. So let's dive into it. Now, what's interesting about all of this is that with Indy 5, The Dial of Destiny, just weeks away from its June 30th release, Disney has been making last-minute decisions and calls on their marketing plan to boost fan engagement levels to get them to the theater as they invest more revenue into the marketing at last minute. However, behind the scenes, and one of the big developments that have surfaced recently involves Harrison Ford, who was very furious and frustrated over Kathleen Kennedy's decision for the ending of Indy 5. The main reasoning why Ford had many issues and creative arguments with Kathleen Kennedy as well as James Mangold was by agreeing to excluding and deleting an entire scene with Shorty, aka Short Round, by actor Kwan, who filmed an entire 5-minute scene with Harrison Ford that was split up into pieces for the return of Shorty, for both an ending scene and an after-credits moment that was going to allude to a Indy 5 sequel involving Shorty somehow. Now, on top of this, this was pulled and deleted at last minute due to several other factors. Kwan was demanding the scene to be fixed by Kathy and James Mangold, since he didn't like the way the scene was being directed for the last couple of shots. Now, let me pause here for 1 second, guys, alright? 1 second here. What's interesting about Kwan is that you guys may or may not know that he was the star of Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. Go ahead and check it out. It is a complex film. I'm going to be very blunt and honest with you, and it may not be for you, or it may very well be suited for your needs and when it comes to a movie, but we got to remember that he really did a fantastic job with this movie, and it just goes to show you that Kwan really understands exactly how to be an actor and how to really put on a proper performance. He even understands directing and writing very well. Now, the fact that Kathleen Kennedy pulled the entire scene that involved Short Round, Shorty, for not just an ending, but also for an after-credits scene. This is connected, by the way, to our previous video that we talked about of how the scene in question actually involved both Indiana Jones and Helena seeking out Shorty that's actually back in Sri Lanka, China, where he informs him about a map and gives him a map to the Himalayan mountains that stores a specific new relic. Now, this seemingly was setting up an Indy 5 sequel that was going to at least involve Shorty, but perhaps not Harrison Ford as Indiana Jones, per se. This also connects to what Kathleen Kennedy said of how they want to make sequels and how there are ways that they can make, expansions of the Indiana Jones franchise without Harrison Ford specifically. So, what's interesting about this that's quite concerning. Further, on top of this, Kwan did walk out on production earlier than expected on the production of Indy 5 and even provided some test footage that may or may not be used for a cameo. But due to him having a big disagreement with Kathleen Kennedy, she felt the scene needed to be butchered also since she wanted to honor Helena toward the end of the film instead. Now, with now 6 endings that were reportedly shot and filmed for a total for Indy 5, instead of the previously known 4, this was the 4th one that had been created earlier on, where the last 2 honor Helena in a controversial way to the fandom, one of which is in the final cut that was shown to, of course, everyone at Cannes Film Festival. Harrison Ford was extremely unsatisfied with Kathy's decision to pull his ending out from the film altogether and refused to even use it separately as a scene for the middle point of the movie. Now, again, Harrison Ford has a very good point and a very good reasoning and a valid point why he would be very annoyed and frustrated over taking Short Round out of the ending of this movie in such a climactic way. It would have definitely set up things greatly. This ending, in a way, kind of reminds me of how, when you look at series out there like Cobra Kai, of how it really kind of just teases you of who's coming into the next season. They really should have done something like that, and they almost got there. And what really upsets me as a fan, and as an Indiana Jones fan, I'm sure a lot of you are as well, when you look at these movies, these characters, much like the characters in Star Wars that fans grew up with, it carries with you, and to actually exclude Shorty from the ending, specifically, of Indy 5, I think is just robbery. Now, we've gone over this before, that some test footage was shot apart from this ending for Quan and Shorty as a character that may or may not end up in the film, to somehow piece together a specific little cameo, perhaps at a middle point of this movie, or maybe even earlier on. It's going to be really interesting to see if they could do that or not. But the thing that also I think concerns a lot of fans here, and we all have to realize this, is that James Mangold, as a filmmaker, he's had his hit and misses, and I will be honest, sometimes his view on the fans is quite blunt and a little harsh. He himself even said that Star Wars fans are very hard to deal with and how they're very toxic, etc., etc., etc. We look at stuff like that, and it really makes you wonder, is he going to stick around for his Dawn of the Jedi Star Wars movie? Now, there's been a lot of rumblings that Disney does want to fire James Mangold already because he's going to actually have that Indy 5 failure following with him coming out of this movie. And even though we are still a far ways from this movie even arriving, in fact, he's not going to begin writing until this fall, and that's if the writer's strike ends by this summer. So what's interesting further down the road here is the fact that Harrison Ford really tried to defend Quan to have a role in Indy 5. He tried to really convince Kathy Kennedy to keep it in the can, but nope, they wanted to get rid of it. And this reminds me exactly of what happened with The Rise of Skywalker toward the end, where basically J.J. Abrams was practically begging Kathleen Kennedy to keep Ben Solo alive, to keep that scene where he walks into the sunset with Rey, to at least keep a Skywalker alive and well. But the same exact thing, nope. Kathleen Kennedy wanted to erase that, take it out of the can, and replace it with simply Rey calling herself Rey Skywalker. And that's something that a lot of fans did not really support. And let's be honest, you all have your opinions, and that's fine. We're all human beings, we have our mindsets and opinions on things. I'm not here to change that. But it is what it is, and it's very depressing that this is where we are. So anyways, guys, drop a comment below, fill me in below what you all have to say about this, and if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel, and I will catch you guys next time.